We are now halfway through the summer. The 4th of July is behind us. That can only mean one thing here in the United States, and that means it is officially Halloween season. So I can't think of a better thing to do than to torture myself by watching all 13 Halloween movies in a marathon and then tier listing them. This is Painting Shadows.
Uh, Hello, everyone. Marcos here, actually groomed for this one. I have never been a big fan of the Halloween series. Yes, of course, the original 1978 movie is a classic, and I don't think you'd find many people who dislike it, who is into horror, of course. But the rest of the series has always been hit or miss for me, mostly miss actually kind of by quite a lot. But I haven't actually went out and seen every single Halloween film, so I took it upon myself over the past week to marathon all 13 Halloween movies that have been released so far. Watching those movies and taking notes, it wasn't for the love of the game, it wasn't for the fun. I'm going to sit down and tier list every single one of them and rank them. And I'm going to tell you the times that I was delightfully surprised or extremely disappointed. So we'll just jump into it. Let's go from here. We'll be going in chronological order of when the movies were released. So first, of course, Halloween 1978.
Halloween.
I don't think it's going to shock anyone by saying that this is an amazing movie, one of the all-time great horror movies, the movie that really launched the slasher genre. Other slashers had existed before this, and obviously slashers were influenced by Italian giallo films as well. Not exactly the same, but you can see the DNA. So there are movies like this that had existed before, but I feel like Halloween 1978 was really the jumping off point for every slasher that would go on and become a popular horror subgenre throughout the 1980s. For me, what makes this movie work so well is that the shape, of course, Michael Myers, is always somewhere in the distance. You can always pick him out, you can always see him somewhere, and the people around him are not aware. The tension that builds from when you see them walk into an area where Michael has been, you're like, okay, something bad's going to happen. I don't know when, I don't know how. This is a movie that really uses the strengths of being a independent film, and John Carpenter masterfully uses his limited budget in the most effective way possible. You didn't need really flashy kills. You just needed that growing tension. You just needed to see these people's daily lives being disrupted by this monster, this boogeyman. And there's not really anything I can say that's bad about this movie. There's no part of it that seems underdeveloped or missed. Like, it's a great little slice of a moment of time of something horrible that had happened to these people in this small town. I will get into my problems with the other films as we go through them, but a lot of them stem from that very fact that you're taking an idea that really only works for this small period of time in this small area and these small characters, and then expanding it out, stretching it so thin that it really stretches the story past its breaking point. So, for 1978's Halloween, it is an S tier. It is a perfect slasher movie. I can't personally think of a slasher movie that I like more than this. I know some other people like others, and that's totally fine. There are a lot of other good ones, and we may talk about those in the future. But for me, Halloween is the quintessential best slasher film. Nothing has topped it. And I know that's kind of a spoiler for the rest of the list, but as you go on, there's actually going to be some surprises, and even some surprises to me because I didn't expect to like some things that I liked and dislike things that I thought I did like. Yes, 1978's Halloween, S tier, Platinum Award, one of the best horror movies ever made. Halloween 2 was released in 1981.
Halloween 2.
Instead of John Carpenter directing it, this time is a gentleman named Rick Rosenthal, who actually does a very good job, in my opinion, of emulating John Carpenter's style. I haven't seen Halloween 2 in at least a decade, probably more, so it wasn't really fresh in my mind. I didn't remember a lot of it. Just a lot of the visual stuff at the end, kind of burns into your mind. But otherwise, Halloween 2 was kind of going in fresh for this one. I personally hate that it takes place immediately after the first Halloween. I think it completely cuts the first movie off at its heels by doing that. I don't know if it's because I watched it back to back. Maybe I'd feel a little bit differently if I saw the original one in 1978 and then, a few years later saw the second one in 1981. Maybe my mindset would have been a little bit different. Maybe it feels better if there's some distance between these two movies. But for me, watching them back to back, it feels like it knocks the wind completely out of the first movie. In this movie, we get a lot more of the grand monologues from Dr. Loomis about the nature of evil and pure evil and stuff like that. That is something that, as time goes on, and I will show in my notes, that I get quite tired of. In this movie, not so much. And actually, in this movie, looking back now, I wrote these notes as I was watching the movies. It is like nothing compared to some of the later movies that go so far into the psychoanalysis side that this movie seems quaint by comparison. I actually really do like that it's mostly in one setting in the hospital here. I think some kills are a little silly, like the hot tub kill. I do like that Michael is stealthily walking around the hospital, avoiding any kind of discovery by the nurses. So he kind of slips into like the maternity ward. He hides around like a corner. It's really cool. It kind of continues to give you that voyeuristic feel that you do get in the first movie. So the second movie really does, I think, capture the tone of the first. And the big thing, of course, in this one is that they solidify a retcon that Laurie is indeed Michael Myers' little sister. I also am not a fan of this. I think it's better in the first movie where he didn't have a clear motive. They were just the wrong people at the wrong time, encountering a pretty bad person. Now it becomes this thing where he is obsessed with killing every member of his family or something like that. They never really give a good excuse as to why, other than like, well, he's evil or he's crazy. And it's like, well, he could be evil and crazy and not be killing his sister. And so adding all of this lore to this character that ultimately does nothing with it is kind of pointless. And we go into the realm now where it's basically guaranteed that Michael Myers is a supernatural entity because he takes 2 bullets to the face. And that right there is a really cool visual where the blood comes trickling out the eye holes of the William Shatner mask. And then he is set on fire as he roams the halls of the hospital. It's actually a really awesome visual. Despite not loving the movie, it does have very cool visuals. It really does ramp up what John Carpenter put in before. It also does undercut some of the stuff. So, because I have issues with the new development of Laurie being Michael's sister, I have issues with it taking place immediately after the first movie. I have issues with the fact that they are trying to expand the character of Michael Myers in general to make him more than just that simple boogeyman that he was in the original film. I'm going to give Halloween 2 a B. And in my medaling system, this is a silver medal, in my opinion. Next up, the divisive Halloween 3.
Halloween 3, Season of the Witch.
So John Carpenter's original vision for the Halloween series is that each movie would be an individual new story. But because Michael Myers in the first movie became so popular, they felt that they needed to continue to keep that character going, hence why Halloween 2 was the movie it was. Halloween 3, however, is very different. It's a completely new story and one that I actually enjoy quite a bit. It's a little corny and cheesy. I think that's most of its weakness. I've heard people compare it to like a made-for-TV movie, which I think kind of tracks. But visually, it's still really nice. It's, has a decent budget. It looks pretty good. And it doesn't feel cheap like a made-for-TV movie would be. But plot-wise, I get that comparison. I'm a fan of Tom Atkins and whatever movie he pops up in. He is one of those actors that is like, this is just a guy, right? Like, he doesn't seem movie starish in any way. He seems like a dude you'd see in day-to-day life, just walking down the streets or going to the grocery store. And I always enjoy seeing him in movies and do enjoy him here quite a lot. The investigation aspect is something that I like quite a bit. He and the daughter of the man who was killed go to the small Irish American town and investigate further on what was happening, the reason why that man was killed, and what does it have to do with this company that is making Halloween masks. The Halloween masks are infused with some kind of ancient Celtic witchcraft and computer chips. That's the kind of part that I think is a little silly. Like, why bring computer chips, technology, and robots into it? I think that's a little dumb. It could have just been an entire magic type thing. I do really like the villain in this movie, Cochrane, played by Dan O'Hara. Dan O, played by Dan O. Dan O'Herlihy. Herlihy. He does a great job of being this creepy old man, cult leader, ancient Celtic wizard type creature. He's not a creature, he's a man. This movie does still have a bit of the feel of a Halloween movie in it, and I think that's in large part due to John Carpenter's score. Visually, a lot of the shots have some similarities, but those are mostly in the beginning where it's kind of teasing a slasher film. Later on, it just kind of becomes more of a traditional movie. You get really cool things like the Halloween mask turning a kid's brain and head into mush with snakes and spiders and bugs crawling out of it. It's pretty disgusting. It's not the same type of gore and violence you get out of a Halloween movie, but it is pretty effective in this. This movie I enjoyed quite a lot. I think it is a good proof of concept that you can take the Halloween idea and expand it into other stories. I think maybe for me, just on par, maybe slightly lesser than Halloween 2. Halloween 4. Halloween 4.
Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers.
Dear, oh dear, Halloween 4. This movie, we return to the Michael Myers story. It is literally called Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. We get the return of Donald Pleasance, but we do not get the return of Jamie Lee Curtis. In the story, she died, and before her death, she had a child that was named Jamie Lloyd, played by Danielle Harris. And positive, Danielle Harris as a young, little girl actress is really good in this movie. Just consistently does a good job as a child actress. So that is probably the only good thing I have to say about this movie. At this stage, the feel of a Halloween movie is entirely gone. You no longer really get that voyeuristic feel, that very natural feel that you're just kind of on the streets with other people. It feels more movie. Completely loses the trappings of an independent film like the first movie had. And one of the biggest losses is there is no John Carpenter score in this one. Of course, they use his classic theme. That's something that they'll never take away. But John Carpenter's score throughout the movie really sells the tension and what's happening. And none of that is here. The kills are really weak in this one. It really felt like it could have been a PG-13 movie to me almost. There is violence, but there's not a lot of really gory or really violent kills. Not that I necessarily need gore to be in these movies, but it really kind of sells the damage, and this one just did not have that. The thing that annoys me the most is that at this stage, the Michael character is completely exposed. He is now hanging off the rooftops of cars, being tumbled around, being hit by cars. We just see Michael do too much. This character works so much better when we're only seeing glimpses of him, and then he strikes and does something horrible. And then the extended scenes is seeing him doing something gruesome to somebody and look at them with his cold, black, lifeless eyes. That's where Michael's most effective. And I know people are like, well, if he's going to be in more movies, we have to evolve him more. We have to add lore. And it's like, no, just don't make more movies with him. Like, it could have just been the first one. Why do you have to add all this shit to this character that is bad? It's just not good. Why are they turning Michael Myers into Rambo? He's hanging off ledges of cars. He's being hit by a car. He's sinking into the ground, getting shot 1,000 times. He's not a character that you want to see go through all of this. I think it works better for a character like Jason Voorhees, who's like this indestructible zombie thing, to kind of see the extent of the damage he can take. For Michael, you want to keep the mystery on whether this thing is a human or not. You want to kind of straddle that line. And at this stage, that line is completely crossed into absurdity and just completely loses the mystique of the character. This movie is full on schlock, but without any of the fun charm that usually comes with schlock. It's kind of just drab and boring. Kind of just continue to get Dr. Loomis monologuing. You continue to get a town that is in unrest because of a single serial killer, and there's no sense of payoff or intrigue to further the story after this is finished in terms of Michael Myers. However, at the very end, you see Jamie don a clown costume and stab her adopted sister. That was interesting. That was cool. That could have launched something else, something new to the series. But as we'll see in Halloween 5, it doesn't really get there. So, Halloween 4. This is, I think, it's maybe one exception, my least favorite Halloween movie. I just thought it was so boring, so limp. It didn't have any tension. None of the kills had any impact. It was just drab, boring, middle of the road garbage that wasn't schlocky enough to be funny and was not well put together enough to be good. So it is D tier. It gets no medal. This movie was a failure. Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers, released in 1989.
Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers.
Once again, stars Donald Pleasance and Danielle Harris as Jamie Lloyd. So at the very end of Halloween 4, Michael falls into this underground pit, and then they throw a stick of dynamite at it. We see Michael crawl out of a hole, fall into a river, and then float down the river. And automatically, right then and there, we see too much of him. It's so annoying. Why are we watching Michael Myers, this boogeyman, float down a river? It's just so stupid to me. It's so visually dumb looking too. And I have to say, this is easily the worst looking mask that is in any of these movies. It just looks so stupid. He looks like an idiot, and this movie makes him seem like an idiot. So I guess it fits in that regard. This movie is mostly the same as Halloween 4. Most of my criticisms of Halloween 4 works for Halloween 5. I feel like this one is a little less drab and is schlocky in a way that is a little bit more fun with the psychic link and all of that. That's kind of like a trope in a lot of these kind of horror movies. But don't let that fool you. It's still overall a pretty bad movie. We do get a little bit more impactful kills here. There's one with a pitchfork that I thought was pretty nice. And one scene that I did actually like in particular was at some point, Michael is behind the wheel of a car chasing down a teenager. And visually, I just think it looks really cool. This creep, this freak is stalking down this person. And as they're running, the only thing illuminating them is the headlights of the car. Halloween 5 for me is a C tier movie. It is not very good. It is mostly bad, but there are a few moments in it, like that car scene, like some of the more impactful kills, like some of the visuals that I think makes it better than Halloween 4, where Halloween 4 is just kind of drab and boring. Halloween 5 has a little bit more juice to it. Next, we get into Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers, which was released in 1995. This is where, for me, it does cross over into fun schlock. We have, of course, Paul Rudd, which I think this may be his debut feature-length film. He is actually pretty bad in this movie, in my opinion. He comes off as phony as can be. He is likable, though. This is where we get this whole retcon that Michael Myers is part of this cult of thorns, and it's some kind of ancient Celtic, I don't know. It's dumb. It's really stupid. But we do see a bit more on-screen kills as opposed to part 4 and part 5. You do get a feeling that there is movement. It doesn't seem slow or boring like 4 was. You don't get a lot of the kind of cheesy seeing things happen to Michael Myers, with with a few exceptions that happen a bit later on. This kind of trying to force a lore into the series when it really was just about a lone psychopath killing people. They're trying to create a bigger world that is rushed. It makes very little sense, and it's not even really that fun. It's very dumb. This is when the schlock crosses over from the boring stuff that was in 4 to actually being a little bit more fun. It's stupid, but in a way that is enjoyable. So while Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers, is still a pretty bad film in my point of view, It is better than 4, which I feel is at this stage the worst film. And I would say it might even be a little bit better than 5, but not much. It sits at C tier, no medals. Halloween H2O, which came out in 1998. And in this movie is when we start to get like a lot of familiar faces, which I feel becomes a mainstay of Halloween movies from this point on. We get somebody like Joseph Gordon-Levitt as a very young actor in this who gets an ice skate to the face. You also see LL Cool J, of all people. Do people now, do like Gen Z people or younger even know who LL Cool J is? I feel like he is somebody that is completely irrelevant in 2025. In H2O, they seem to be doing the retcon thing where they're ignoring mostly part 4, 5, and 6. They don't talk anything about the Cult of Thorns. We do get a tie-in with 4 where it is revealed that Laurie Strode, who is played by Jamie Lee Curtis, who is returning for the first time since 2, faked her death and has moved to California, changed her name, and has a new family in a different place. This movie doesn't shake up things too much. One thing I do like about it is that it does give Laurie a lot of agency. Although Laurie is not like the survivalist preparing for Michael sort of thing that we see in later movies, she is a bit tougher. She is a bit more prepared to handle Michael. And there is a mostly fun extended fight scene between her and Michael at the end of the movie, which does result in some cool scenes. I generally hate when I see Michael do too much or see too many things happen to him. It really ruins the mystique of this character. But in H2O, it's done in a sort of way that isn't too bad. Halloween H2O for me sits at the top of C tier, maybe almost in B tier. Like I'm kind of iffy on that. I may reevaluate it when I put more movies onto the tier list here, but for now, I think that it's sitting at the top of C tier. It's a completely solid movie. Nothing really gets out in the way except for Josh Hartnett's terrible haircut. Now, Halloween Resurrection, which came out in 2002,
Trick or treat, mother.
is generally considered one of the absolute worst Halloween films. And I completely agreed with that until my rewatch this time. And I know I get a lot of flack sometimes of being a contrarian for being somebody who likes to just disagree for no reason. I have to say, I had a lot of fun with this movie. And I think the marathon nature in which I watched these movies this time really helped this movie because it was very different from the others. It was a shot to the arm. And like I said, from H2O on, we get a lot of familiar actors in supporting roles, and not necessarily even just actors, but people in popular culture. In this movie, we have Tyra Banks, Buster Rhymes. You've seen a lot of this cast pop up elsewhere in minor roles and just people throughout pop culture, which is kind of enjoyable to see, especially somebody who was hitting their teens at that point in time. This is a pretty nostalgic era for me, despite the fact that most horror films in this period of time of the late 90s and the early 2000s were mostly garbage. There are a few things that they do that I think actually utilizes this setup very well, where we get POV kill shots using the camera in effective ways and interesting ways that where they actually pay off the setup of the movie, where they use the premise to actually create kills and interesting scenes throughout. And because of that whole webcam setup, we do once again get that whole voyeuristic thing that calls back to the original Halloween. It's something that I actually really love about the original Halloween, and I'm happy to see it here represented in a slightly different way, but it is represented nonetheless. And I think this movie is better because of that. At one point, Michael Myers and Buster Rhymes confront each other, both dressed up in the iconic mechanic's jumpsuit and William Shatner mask. And at some point during that confrontation, Buster Rhymes tells Michael Myers to skedaddle. And Michael Myers' response to that is to sit for a second, turn around, and walk away. It's so dumb that it was hilarious to me. There is the infamous scene where Buster Rhymes kung fu's Michael Myers, and this scene is as stupid as I remembered it being when I originally saw this movie. For me, this scene ruined the Halloween franchise, but that was because I had not remembered 4, 5, and 6. I did not remember how dull these movies got. And watching this movie now in a marathon type setting was refreshing. It was still bad. It's still dumb. I still hate to see Michael get beaten up like this. I still hate to see things happen to Michael. But Trick or Treat Mother is funny and gave me some relief during this marathon. If you were to tell me that I was going to be ranking every Michael Myers on a tier list, I would have probably put this one at the dead last one just based off of my memory of the ones that I had seen. However, this movie I felt was a hell of a lot better than Halloween 4, better than 5, better than 6, and I'm going to say it, I think it was also better than Halloween H2O. I put it at the very top of C tier. It is very dumb. It's a movie that I think if you want a serious movie, if you want a serious slasher, if you want to be in suspense, don't watch this. This is not that kind of movie. It is not a good movie. It's a bad movie. It is a high quality, very entertaining, bad movie. And for people who like that sort of thing, somebody like me, this you can get a lot out of this. To be completely honest, this is a very stupid movie in a very fun way. And next up is Halloween 2007, the Rob Zombie remake.
Halloween.
Rob Zombie's hillbilly remake of the original Halloween is not that bad. The backstory of Michael as a kid does kind of kill that mystery of the original film. However, this movie isn't going completely for that same feel. It's a slightly different thing. With that said, I think that origin of Michael goes on a little bit too long. Should have ended at the point where he killed his family, like in the original movie, and brought his little baby sister out with him. Everything from when Michael is found by the police after he killed his family to when he is grown up and then escapes the mental health facility should have just been cut out because it's not necessary. It makes the movie feel bloated and it makes the later half of the movie feel rushed when we get into the meat of it, where we get to the point where it is purely a remake of the original Halloween. It does get a bit corny where they try to explain everything. Like early on, they show that Laurie's boyfriend has the William Shatner mask. I think that's stupid. Like, why would he have the iconic Michael Myers mask before he even becomes the full grown Michael Myers? I think that's just stupid. They should have just kept it as the clown mask from the original movie. You don't have to explain every little aspect of Michael Myers before he becomes fully formed. I think that's just corny, obvious directing, obvious screenwriting. You could have done so much more clever things and you could have just implied some of the things. I don't need to know who he got his original jumpsuit from. I don't need to know who he got his original kitchen knife from. I don't have to see the first time he tilts his head after he kills somebody. We understand that all that stuff is part of Michael Myers already. Let's just see how it plays out. You don't need to make such highly reverent references to every moment. This movie plays out like it was made by a Halloween fanboy, which I guess it probably was. The mask looks great. The kills are brutal. I like Malcolm McDowell as Dr. Loomis. I think he's a good choice. However, I think things start to go pretty bad in the second movie. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But just the idea of Malcolm McDowell as Dr. Loomis is good. I don't like Laurie Strode in this. I don't think the actress is bad, but I think the writing kind of betrays what Laurie Strode is kind of meant to represent, where Laurie was the more innocent person of her friend group who becomes hardened and stronger through this ordeal and is able to successfully survive the boogeyman of Michael Myers. We get a whole host of great B movie actors in this. You do get to see Ken Foree, who is known from Dawn of the Dead, one of my favorites, and my absolute favorite, the guy I like to think that is the mascot of this channel. We get Clint Howard, the Ice Cream Man. That's right, the Ice Cream Man, Clint Howard, is in this goddamn movie. And there's nothing you can do about it. Of course, Sid Haig is in it. All the other Rob Zombie regulars are in it. Of course, Sherry Moon Zombie is in it. It's not a Rob Zombie movie without his wife, without him trying to shove his wife's acting career down your throat. Unfortunately, to all of our dismay, to all of our disgust, he puts her in every single movie he's ever even thought of making. If he had a time machine, he would put his wife in movies that were made 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years ago. That's how much he wants to put his wife into movies. And it's really nice to see Danielle Harris here as one of the teenagers. It's good to see her being utilized in the Halloween franchise. Her career is kind of tied to Halloween, so it's nice to use her in a reasonable way, in a way that is fun for the movie. Because it's a Rob Zombie movie, we do get a lot of music from outside sources that aren't score, so it is nice that we do get to hear Halloween 2 by the Misfits in a scene. But because the overextended nature of the first part of the movie, the second half feels rushed. We don't really get much time to care about Laurie and the other characters. I feel like it takes a backseat to Rob Zombie's love of horrible, terrible people that he likes to put in his movies that say disgusting things. Hey, look, I grew up in that time period. I love edgy humor, but it's like I get really sick of all the and monstrous, just normal people that Rob Zombie writes into his film. It's just annoying at some point. It's like, yeah, I get it. These people are gross. Let's move on. And I also felt that the ending was a little bit stretched out, prolonged. It could have used more of that time to endear us to more of the characters in the second half of the movie. So with that, I'm giving Halloween Rob Zombie's remake a B. Don't know. I'm actually going to put it below Season of the Witch because I do like that it is original story. And Halloween 2007 being a remake is obviously the antithesis of an original story. So I'm giving it a B. I'm giving it a bronze medal. Next up, Halloween 2, released in 2009, the second Rob Zombie Halloween film. And we can kind of blow past this one because I think it is the second worst Halloween movie. I could tell Rob Zombie was trying to go for some interesting themes. It's that you can't really stretch that Michael character. You can't really stretch this world to wider themes that he's trying to explore here. It kind of reaches its limits and it just falls apart. He doesn't quite get there with his point. After the events of Halloween 2007, Michael Myers is kind of just wandering around farms as like a homeless dude with a big beard and like a bearskin coat. And Laurie is obviously traumatized by her experience. There's a lot of therapy scenes in this. This is when I really start to grow tired of the whole psychoanalysis thing. That aspect of these stories is so annoying and it's kind of trying to be an excuse to explore broader themes, but just comes off as so shallow, so stupid. It's like, do we need 10 million speeches about the true nature of evil, about how Michael Myers is a psychopath? Is he really the devil or is he a man? Where is that line? How is it drawn? How do we lose ourselves into the psychopathy? It's just so tired at this point. Just do something interesting instead of rehash that speech that Dr. Loomis had been doing since 1981. Like, do something else. And of course, in this, there's more scumbags, there's more, there's more people. This is the type of character that Rob Zombie loves to display in his films. But like this type of character just does nothing for me. It's so unappealing. It's so annoying. At some point, Lori and her coworkers or friends that work at some kind of head shop, record store type thing, decide to go to a Halloween party concert where they dress up as characters from the Rocky Horror Picture Show. This concert scene is, I would say, the worst scene or stretch of scenes in the entire series. This is awful. The band, there's some kind of psychobilly band that dresses up in Halloween gear, and there's this horror host who just doesn't shut up. The scene goes on for so long, and then it's intercut with Michael Myers walking around as a homeless man, wandering through Haddonfield, and it's like cutting through Michael walking and then them going to a concert over and over and over again. And it just went on forever. None of it was funny. None of it was interesting. None of it was cool. It is just the most annoying thing that I've seen in a movie in a long time. Like, this really killed
any of the joy I had watching any of these movies. Like this was the absolute low point. Actually, I'm going to switch Halloween 4 for Halloween 2, as Halloween 2 is the worst of these movies. Just that segment alone kills that movie. It tanks it. Anything that was good about this movie beforehand, and there's like a lot of really graphic gore, some really cool brutal scenes. Like that's the one thing Rob Zombie is consistently good at, is showing us disgusting things. I do like the presence of Michael Myers in his movies. He's this big hulking monster that just brutalizes people, but they completely kill that when Michael is walking around with a ghost version of his baby self and his mom, and this scene, this horrible concert scene. This is almost as bad as movies get, in my opinion. It's awful. Woo! We are on the final stretch here. Let's talk about Halloween 2018, directed by David Gordon Green and returning as Laurie Strode, Jamie Lee Curtis. This was the latest reboot, sequel, requel, hybrid type thing where they ignore everything after the original 1978 Halloween, which at the stage of 2018 was 40 years ago. And in this one, they do at the beginning lay heavily into the psychoanalysis of Michael Myers and the nature of evil. And this stuff is just so tired and played out to me. As I had mentioned before already, I won't even go much further into it. At one point, a guy says that he got peanut butter on his penis. That is a note that I wrote down, and he keeps on repeating peanut butter on my penis multiple times. I think that was a joke that was supposed to land. It didn't quite do that for me. There are things in this that do capture the feel of Halloween, where they do go back to the kind of idea of just teenagers hanging out and living their lives, and we're kind of maybe getting a slightly voyeuristic view on them. We do get the return of John Carpenter's score, and we get, in this movie in particular, I think, some really cool new songs included into the Halloween series now. Just John Carpenter's presence alone makes this feel more like a classic Halloween movie than other ones had. At one moment, Michael's doctor at the mental health facility does a kind of weird turn in which he wants to see Michael kill somebody on him, where he wants to see Michael confront Laurie face to face. It is a really dumb justification on how Michael escapes the situation. They kind of wrote themselves into a corner and then wrote themselves out of it in the dumbest way possible. It was just something that was completely unnecessary and didn't really add anything to the movie. And it tried to make this nothing doctor character into something more than he was, and then just doesn't really do anything with it. We do get a cool echo scene where Laurie falls off of a balcony. Michael looks down at her. He hears something. Michael looks away and then looks back, and Laurie disappears, kind of giving you that classic Halloween moment, but reversed. It is a little bit of a fan service fanboy type of thing, but I did like that. I think that was pretty fun. Laurie built her entire house to face Michael at some point and built this underground trap to store Michael in and set him on fire. And we do get a cool visual of Michael looking up from this cellar locked in as fire roars all around him and engulfs him. Laurie is gravely injured and is sent to a hospital. I think this movie was quite enjoyable. It didn't go too far off of the path that you would expect a Halloween movie would go in. It was fairly respectful to the source material. Obviously, completely unneeded. The anything after the original Halloween movie is, in my opinion, unneeded. But it wasn't a bad movie. It didn't feel like it completely overstayed its welcome. It does explore the kind of trauma that Laurie had gone through, which is the psychoanalysis stuff that I think works better than trying to psychoanalyze Michael. Michael is an empty void killing machine. We don't really need to think too much about what's going on in his head. But what has gone on in his victim's head is a little bit more interesting. This movie gets a B, a bronze medal, and is it better than Halloween 3? I feel like Halloween 3 is still such its own thing that I don't want to put
Halloween 2018 above it. It still kind of falls into the standard Michael Myers fare. Halloween Kills, which was released in 2021, directed by David Gordon Green, and Jamie Lee Curtis returns once again as Laurie Strode. The worst part for me in this movie is how Michael seemingly survives the fire trap. It's like he just doesn't burn. like, like what the hell? Like he is completely engulfed in this basement trap. The fire is roaring. That's taking the house down, and Michael just doesn't catch on fire. There's no explanation as to why he doesn't catch on fire. He just doesn't. I felt like that was so dumb. I do like the flashback. It really does capture the feel of Halloween, and it's very clearly taking place after the events of the original Halloween in 1978. And we see some of the aftermath of what happened after Michael disappears. I've talked about many times here that I don't really like to see things extend past that single night of Halloween in 1978, but they do it in a way that is aesthetically consistent. We continue to have that John Carpenter score, so it really does capture the feel of that era. And we get a pretty good representation of Donald Pleasance as Dr. Loomis. I don't know if it's like CG, a deep fake. It's not like perfect by any means, but it's pretty good compared to a lot of other representations of dead actors that we've gotten. One of the sillier scenes for me is when Michael kills like a dozen firefighters. He kind of kung fu's them. It is not unlike a Jet Li scene. Like I'm remembering specifically the Lethal Weapon 4 Jet Li scene where he's like disarming people, dismantling their guns, and beating the shit out of a lot of people. It has that kind of feel, and it just is really dumb that Michael is doing that. I also really don't love the idea that this one guy has an entire town under siege. It's like you could just get all the police in active duty to hunt down this one serial killer. I don't like the idea that he has an entire town in uproar. The reason why the first movie works as good as it does is because he is stealthily doing this. He is taking a few people out here and there, and he is in the shadows. He is the shape. He is the boogeyman. In this movie, he is like Rambo. He is just like on Main Street mowing people down, and it's like the whole town cannot do anything about it. It just like doesn't make sense. And it just seems silly that like this entire town is trying to fight off one guy. There is one point where Michael's mask is taken off and you can kind of just see how gnarled and scarred he is. I do like that as well. But once again, we're going from the realm of like him as a man taking damage versus him being like a Terminator like figure who just goes through all the pain. I think that they just don't quite connect the two things together and make it make sense. I'm talking too much. I'm losing my voice. And then finally, Michael is once again in a situation where he is surrounded. He is caught dead to rights, but this time the town doesn't let him go. They unload on him. They get him down. They beat him to a pulp. They have him nearly finished. He just gets up and then kills everyone, as if the previous moment where he had been beaten down and dragged out by the townsfolk just didn't happen. And he gets back up full strength and just kills everyone. It's this returning to square one every time with these movies that I feel really does a disservice. They really need to progress. They really need to do something a little bit different. John Carpenter's original vision of it being an anthology series, while had its misstep, I feel like would have been better for these movies overall as time had gone on. The short-sightedness of like milking the character of Michael Myers, milking that image of the shape has kind of ruined this franchise and made it a complete mess as time had gone on. And as much problems I had with it, this is not in the realm of the worst Halloween movies. I'm going to give it a middle C tier. I'm going to put it just above H2O, but below Resurrection. And finally, oh, this marathon has come to an end. This video is coming to an end. I'm finally going to be able to rest. I'm finally going to be rid of Michael Myers.
hopefully at some point I can look at a kitchen knife without hearing the Michael Myers Halloween theme song playing in my head. This was quite an experience. I knew I didn't love these movies going into it. I was open for my mind to be changed. This kind of went exactly the way I thought it was going to go. And I don't know if that makes it worth it. I don't want to sit here and say, haha, I told all you Halloween fans that these were bad. I'm not happy about it. I would have rather these been good. I would have rather have been entertained. I would have rather have not wasted my time watching all of these movies. Let's get into Halloween Ends. Halloween Ends was released in 2022, the final movie in the David Gordon Green trilogy of Halloween films. And I have to say, this may be controversial. This may be a similar take to Halloween Resurrection, but I kind of like this one. It's probably because I went through 12 other movies during the course of this past week that it was so relieving to get a movie that was a little bit different. We mostly focus on this character named Corey Cunningham, maybe? I didn't write down his last name, but his name is Corey. He is babysitting on Halloween night and accidentally kills a kid that he is watching. It's kind of a shocking moment that you wouldn't really see coming and is really effective. And you really do feel for Corey as a character because this was not his fault in any way. We go a year or so after and we pick back up with Corey, and then we are reintroduced to Lori and her granddaughter Allison. Corey and Allison kind of strike up a budding relationship. Corey is kind of outcasted for the events that had happened when he accidentally killed that kid and is bullied a bit throughout town. He then at some point gets his hand cut, and Laurie Strode, as played by Jamie Lee Curtis, for perhaps the last time, finds him, helps him, brings him to a hospital in which he meets Allison. We go a decent amount of time without seeing Michael at all, but at one point, Corey is once again bullied, then at some point falls into a sewer, which he encounters Michael, who had been in the sewers laying dormant for some time. And instead of killing him, Michael looks into his eyes and sees his past. And now Michael is like some kind of empath psychic who can read the feelings of fellow budding serial killers. I felt like that part was kind of stupid. They didn't really lay the groundwork for it. Like, sure, the David Gordon Green Michael Myers is a bit more supernatural in the sense that he is indestructible compared to other Michaels. There's never an overt supernatural aspect to his character that made you believe that he has some kind of supernatural ability to read people's minds. Michael lets Corey go. Corey runs into a random bum outside of the sewers and they get into a bit of a fight. The bum pulls out a knife and then Corey turns the tables and kills the bum himself. We see that Corey gets a little bit more of that bloodlust. He gets a little bit more of his power back after kind of losing his confidence about the horrible thing that had happened to that kid. At some point, Corey dons the famous William Shatner Michael Myers mask and just becomes the shape himself. And we get some fun scenes where both Michael and Corey are killing people together. This leads to a confrontation between Corey and Laurie Strode, where she's trying to prevent Allison being with Corey. And Corey obviously is not having that. And he has grown into his confidence at this point and believes that he is able to stop Laurie and take Allison for his own. And a big altercation occurs that ultimately ends with Corey losing his life. However, immediately after, Michael appears and we see the final confrontation between Laurie and Michael. And I actually really like that scene. I feel like it was well built, and the lengths that Laurie has to go to stop Michael or incapacitate him was pretty extreme and pretty fun to see. And you also see that despite all that, Michael still has all of this rage and strength that he is still able to kind of muster strength and tries to stop Laurie before it ends. I do think the very ending is a little bit silly. The idea of them putting Michael's body into a giant junkyard grinder, I don't think is necessarily bad.
but they have like a full town procession for this. They have Michael tied to the roof of a car. Everybody in town follows them along. He gets like a police escort, and then they put his body into this giant grinder. And they don't shy away from showing it. It is pretty brutal when he gets ripped up and sucked into that grinder. Halloween Ends, I think a lot of people didn't like it because it does take the focus away from Michael and Laurie a little bit. It does become its own story. Um, but for me, that was refreshing. I actually enjoyed that quite a bit. I think that this is a better movie than it is given credit for. I don't think it's great. I don't think it sits at the top of the list. I don't think it sits in A. I think it fits comfortably after Halloween 3, but before Halloween 2018. Whereas a few other Halloween movies tried to have some themes built into it, I feel like this movie does a better job of tying those themes into the story of Michael and to the characters. And I think it does help that they kind of invented a new character to be a part of this and to see the story through his eyes as opposed to one of the characters that have been around for this entire series. I did not hate Halloween Ends. I thought it was a fairly decent movie. I think that if you were to continue this story of Halloween from now on, let's just keep Michael dead and build more stories like this where we see horror through the eyes of different people, and maybe the legacy of Michael Myers lives on, but Michael Myers himself is no longer present in the story. And now, taking a look at the tier list, I want to make, I think, one slight adjustment. I kind of don't like that we have so much sitting in the middle here, and I want to promote a movie. I'm going to bring Halloween 2 up to A tier. I think that despite that I don't like that it starts immediately after the events of Halloween, I think that took a lot of it away from me. The feel is still there, the shape is still mysterious, he's still brutal, he's still this enigma that you can't completely figure out. So, what did I get wrong? What did I get right? What is your favorite Halloween film? What is your favorite moment from a Halloween film? What did you think of my painting? What did you think of this video? There's plenty of things to comment on. You can even just say that I'm stupid. I'm okay with that too. I am kind of stupid.